Well, last week, Microsoft celebrated their 50th anniversary, but what was meant to be a flashy and jovial moment for the tech giant instead became a spotlight on its complicity in Israel's war on Gaza. That's because two courageous junior engineers stood up and disrupted the high-profile events, one involving the company's founder, Bill Gates. You may have seen the viral footage of Ibtihal Abu Said disrupting a speech by Microsoft's AI CEO, Mustafa Suleyman. The young Moroccan engineer was part of the company's leading AI audio transcription team, but discovered her work was being used to help the Israeli military record and translate Palestinian voices on the ground in Gaza before they're being targeted by Israeli airstrikes. When she found out, she felt she had no choice but to speak up. Have a listen.
The question I wanted to address today is really simple. What does all this mean?
Mustafa, shame on you. You say you claim that you care about using AI for good, but Microsoft sells AI weapons to the Israeli military. 50,000 people have died, and Microsoft powers this genocide in our region.
Thank you for your protest. I hear you.
You're serious, and you know about this, Mustafa.
I hear your protest. Thank you.
Shame on you. You are a war profiteer.
I hear you.
Stop using AI for genocide, Mustafa. Stop using AI for genocide in our region. You have blood on your hands. All of Microsoft has blood on its hands. How dare you all celebrate when Microsoft is killing children? Shame on you all.
Thank you.
Stop using our
I hear your protest. Thank you.
You'll notice in that video that Abu Said, a Moroccan, refers to Mustafa Suleyman by his ethnicity as Syrian in connection to what is happening in Gaza. Now, Abu Said was fired on Monday by Microsoft over what the company called, quote, just cause willful misconduct, disobedience, or willful neglect of duty. We spoke to her yesterday and she told Middle East Eye that many of the staff working at Microsoft are kept in the dark about how their work is being used to help Israel's military.
Has this reputation of being a company that empowers people and empowers organizations. So unlike a military arms manufacturer, for example, where you know what you're signing up for and you've made that decision based on your values, for Microsoft, we just felt as employees that we were tricked, right? We did not sign up to work on code that directly powers war crimes. So speaking to my personal example, I worked in the AI org and I worked on speech to text essentially. And what I was describing about these tools being used for surveillance and targeting is definitely not something I signed up for. When I was trying to join the organization, all the marketing was around oh, we have these accessibility products where people who have hearing issues can see transcriptions. It's all marketed as a force for good and tech that benefits the world. And so that's what makes it even more important to speak up, because this was not something that any of the employees really just join Microsoft for.
Another Microsoft employee, Vanya Agarwal, disrupted one of the weekend's events. This time, it was a panel featuring 3 current and former CEOs of the company, including, of course, its founder, Bill Gates.
I think you're all hypocrites. I'm a Microsoft worker, and I do not consent. 50,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been murdered with Microsoft technology. How dare you? Shame on all of you for celebrating on their blood. High five with Israel. No anger for apartheid.
All right.
And you may have caught her saying in that video the phrase, no Azure for apartheid. This is the slogan that a growing group of Microsoft employees are banding under to protest the tech giant's contracts with the Israeli military. Back in January, leaked documents showed that Israel's army paid at least $10 million to access Microsoft's Azure cloud computing platform, used to help units across Israel's air, ground, and naval forces, as well as its intelligence directorate. Israel's military has also been granted large-scale access to OpenAI's GPT-4 model, after the company's loosened its restrictions on working in the military industry. But Microsoft is not alone. Under the $1.2 billion Project Nimbus partnership, both Google and Amazon already provide cloud computing and AI services to Israel's government and army. Last month, Google was under fire after it bought Israeli startup Wiz for $32 billion, making it the most expensive acquisition in history. The cloud security firm was founded by former members of Unit A200, an elite Israeli army cyber espionage and surveillance unit. This is part of a growing trend in Silicon Valley, where companies that once prided themselves on ethical business and environments of open critique inside their workplaces have begun to shift towards more opaque practices. Now, Vanya Agarwal told Middle East Eye that despite encouraging staff to voice their complaints internally, Microsoft's HR department regularly silenced those who voiced their concerns.
Microsoft employees have started to voice their concerns, and the workers are agitated. Folks have been asking questions in AMAs, but their questions get deleted. They are suppressed. They are silenced. They are intimidated. And often workers are also retaliated against. We had 2 workers back in October of 2024 who were fired for speaking up against the company's role in Israel's apartheid and genocide and organizing a vigil on campus. So there has been a lot of movement within the company among employees, but also a lot of repression and intimidation from Microsoft. So this movement has been growing over the past year and a half.
To tell us more about the story, we're joined now by MEE's senior reporter in New York, Azad Isa. Azad, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
So you've been speaking to a number of Microsoft staff that belong to this growing group of disgruntled employees, including, of course, Ibtihal and Vanya. Why are they taking their grievances to the public?
Yeah, so according to the staff members that I spoke to, or now former staff members, they have been taking their grievances to Microsoft for months since they first found out about the ties with the Israeli military. And these concerns have been mostly met with silence from the managers or from the company itself. So they felt ignored and erased. And this act of protest at the 50th anniversary event, in which they knew there would be media interest, felt like it was the only way they would ensure that Microsoft would have to publicly face up to these concerns. But there's another element to this, and that is that Ibtihal said that part of the motivation for conducting these protests last Friday at the anniversary event, and in such a public manner, was also to inform other Microsoft staff about the nefarious projects and deals the company is involved in. And what are these projects, right? These protesters, these staff members are protesting against an umbrella of services called, as you said, Project Azure. And these includes cloud storage, computing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, facial recognition. These services have been provided to the Israeli military to carry out some of these operations, or some of their operations, that have obviously led to the killing of Palestinians, including children. And so, according to these employees, many staff members aren't even aware that the company is working with the Israeli military and in this way. So that is something the company doesn't want to talk about, or doesn't want to talk about openly. And this is why Ibtihal and Vanya's, this is why staff members sent out a memo to staff explaining why they had interrupted the event.
And how has Microsoft handled these protests? We know that these 2 have been fired already, but have they made any public statements? Have they responded to any of the allegations that have come along?
Well, the protesters were escorted out by security, first and foremost. Then there was some jeers from the audience suggesting that their actions were not necessarily welcome from many of their colleagues inside the event. Interestingly, you played that clip, but I think it's worth repeating that when Ibtihal addressed Mustafa Suleyman, the head of AI at Microsoft, accusing him of being complicit in the genocide, he replied, quote, "Thank you for your protest. I hear you," end quote. Now, this is ironic because it is precisely because they were ignored that had led them to protest in the first place. Now, after the incident, as I mentioned earlier, the duo sent an email explaining their actions. And after a while, Microsoft blocked their replies and the discussion around the mail. And then they were locked out of their accounts, and then they were fired a few days later. Now, these punitive actions follow the firing of 2 staff members in October for holding a vigil, I believe. And interestingly, after this incident on Friday, Microsoft also released a statement, and I think it's worth reading out. It said, quote, "We provide many avenues for all voices to be heard. Importantly, we ask that this be done in a way that does not cause a business disruption. If that happens, we ask participants to relocate. We are committed to ensuring our business practices uphold the highest standards." So, take what you want from there.
And there has been a growing trend of tech companies venturing into the weapons industry. This feels like it's new, but is this an actual departure for Silicon Valley?
Look, many tech companies in the Bay Area in California have positioned themselves as innovators or innovators and as creating technology for social good. But in truth, there's a long history of tech companies in the US being involved in the military-industrial complex, which dates back, decades. And this is actually how innovation has been able to thrive. So what I'm saying is that there's an image of Silicon Valley, and then there's a reality, and the reality is that innovation has almost always been driven or linked by the military and their needs. So the revelations that Microsoft or Google or Amazon are able to surveil, monitor, and target and kill Palestinians is actually, par for the course. Now, many workers may think that they are joining a company, that would, create innovative, helpful consumer products. And this is where it kind of becomes complicated because they think that they're joining a company that's going to be doing something, but they're actually joining an ecosystem in which the consumer products are actually not as important as the military contracts. And remember, these are protests. These protests, rather, against Microsoft come as part of a wave or a reckoning amongst many tech workers who are pushing back against other tech companies that are working with Israel and the US. Microsoft is in the news today, but over the past few years, there's been Google and Amazon, and there have been major campaigns launched against them for working with the Israeli military. Our audience would obviously have heard of Project Nimbus, for instance. And again, just like Microsoft, many of these details were kept under wraps. So, and just as you have Google and Amazon and Microsoft, there are other companies like Palantir who have been openly supporting Israel, even during these months of genocide, in fact, increasing their support. So if anything, the growing military contracts are showing that these companies operate with a lack of transparency as well as even impunity.
And to your point, I think the CEO of Palantir, Alex Karp, at some point called on the rest of Silicon Valley companies to come forward and be more proud and open of their relationship with Israel. Now, of course, this all isn't happening just within the confines of the tech industry. It feels like it comes within a wider context of what's happening in the United States right now. And in particular, in recent weeks, we've been seeing the crackdown by the Trump administration on the pro-Palestine movement. How would you describe the feeling right now among those wanting to stand in solidarity with Gaza?
Yeah, that's a good question. Ibtihal's and Vania's actions come in the context of a major crackdown on protesters in the US. And interestingly, some of the same tech companies, for instance, like Palantir, are involved in surveillance as well as in cooperating with the Department of Homeland Security, meaning that the same companies involved with the Israeli military are also involved in helping the state and the police surveil protesters as well. So this is actually, a crazy sort of quagmire for protesters. And so if you're on a visa or if you are on permanent residency, meaning that you're not a citizen in the US. And in fact, even if you are a citizen, right, the situation has become very dangerous. And this has meant that many students and advocates for Palestine are nervous to participate for what it might mean for them personally. At the same time, Ibtihal told me that she felt compelled to act because of the events of the past few weeks, in particular, since Israel restarted the bombardments in Gaza. The scenes in Gaza drove her and her colleague to believe that they simply couldn't be part of a company that felt that murdering Palestinians was part and parcel of the bottom line. So they took action. But yes, it is a tense moment in the US. There are many who are taking a step back, but there are others who refuse to be cowed by the fear mongering.
Azad Asa, we always appreciate your work and your insight. Thank you for being with us today. And you can read a lot
Thanks, guys.
more of the work covering this story and all of the work that our fantastic US team is doing by heading along to our website, middleeasti.net. And Ibtihal, who, as I'd mentioned there, of course, gave us some really powerful statements when we spoke to her. And I want to end by one of those statements in particular, which is her explaining her own reasoning of what pushed her to taking on her powerful bosses at Microsoft.
Waking up at 9 a.m. to do my job and just in the back of my mind wondering if, is the product that I'm working on today being provided to the Israeli military? That is just something that I could not silently live with. Like I had to, at the very least, like say something and spread awareness. And going into the event and with the intention to disrupt, like in my head it was, if even like 10 new people learn about Microsoft's complicity and Microsoft completely retaliates against me, it will have been worth it. Like I think when it comes to like human rights and people losing their lives, we don't really have a choice to prioritize our like comfort or our like luxury over like lives being lost because of Microsoft powering murder. Yeah.